Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Ribal and I'm Communications Manager at Arts Canteen. I'm very excited about today's event. I think you guys already know, but this is the first in a series of 3 events where we're bringing Arab women filmmakers for intimate discussions to present their work, tell us a bit about their journey of becoming film directors, and it's also a chance for everyone to ask questions and learn more about them. So for our first event, we have Soudade Kaadane or Soudade Kaadane, for those who don't speak Arabic. And Soudade, thank you so much for joining us. To give you a tiny bit of background, before I start introducing Soudade, just to let you know that we're recording this, so if you don't want to be on camera, please turn your camera off, but it would be nice when you ask a questions, you can either ask it in the chat or come on, just unmute yourself and ask your question. Also, this event is part of AWAN Festival, which Arts Canteen organizes, and it was very kindly supported by the Arts Council England. So to introduce Soudade, Soudade is a French-born Syrian filmmaker, and she has, I think all of us know her because of her film, The Day I Lost My Shadow, which was awarded the Lion of the Future Award for Best Debut Film at the Venice Film Festival 2018. She studied in Lebanon and Syria, I think, and her films have been screened at several venues around the world. I won't take very long. I'll leave it to Soudade to start her presentation. At the end, I think you'll get a chance to ask questions, and I'll come back at the end. So thank you, Soudade.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing it with us. Thank you so much for it. And I'm happy to see the names. Most of us, we already people we chat together, we know each other work, and I feel like I'm continuing this chat. So thank you for organizing it with Yasmin and Nazi. I was so happy to see their names of women filmmaker, women. I love their work. And I felt like small reunion of filmmakers, and hopefully next time in person. So I think most seeing the names, and thank you guys for joining us. I think you know most of my film and stuff, but I will talk a little bit how I started as a woman filmmaker in Syria and show a little bit a list of my films. Bear with us, a little bit technical things might happen because the first time I will be sharing video via Zoom, so it might take a little bit of thing to happen. But yeah, I will try to show my my first movies to show a little bit of how it developed and how I was thinking of it as a filmmaker. So I started in Syria. I was born in France, but I lived most of my life in Syria, and I studied theater. And then I felt like this is not what I want to do. I want to do something else, but I didn't know if there's something else because there's no cinema school in Syria. There's no cinema, so I didn't even think that one day I will be a filmmaker. So then I went to Lebanon to study a master of theater, and it was the first day of study, and I felt still maybe this is not what I want to do. And I looked at the cinema department. I felt, yeah, this is what I want to do. So at this moment, my life changed. At the moment that I had these possibilities that wasn't at all here in Syria. If you're hearing the ambulance in London, it's always the same like this. So it wasn't a possibility of doing this. So I just, well, the first time I had assignment to, like, I have a class to film something, I felt that this is what was missing in my life. I always wanted to be a filmmaker, but I didn't know that might be. So I studied filmmaking, and I felt like, I'm so lucky to doing it, and I still feel like I'm lucky that I had this opportunity to do it. It was also a scholarship from Saint Joseph University, and at the time was like the rector very supportive of me to make this. And then I came back to Syria, and this was the most difficult thing, because you're coming back after studying in Syria cinema, and most of the people, there's no industry. And then the only thing that's happening is based on finance by a national organization of cinema. And they wouldn't, I'm not part of the gang. So kind of very difficult to find a place to make a film there in Syria. So the only opportunity for me to make a film, that's decide I'll be my director and producer. So since the first film I did, which was To City and Prison, I always made my film as a director, producer, scriptwriter, and multi-option to do in my films. So I don't know how any person would do this differently. So I never did a film while I'm not directing, producing, post-production, supervising, all the things that I have to do, and editing at the same time. And it's kind of also coming from necessity also, because no one wanted at that time, now it's different, thank God it's different, but at that time no one wanted to reach out to a women director and ask them to direct films. So the first opportunity was there is a very small theater group that they're doing theater group in Syria, and they asked me to do a film about them. So I found it a great opportunity to make my film. So I ended my study in 2007, and by 2008 I finished my first film. And I was in it like producer, editing, I did the grading. I shot with someone. I was lucky to have a DOP with me, but I didn't know that I was a post-production supervisor, so I had to do all the stuff to make it happen because it was a very small budget. I'm showing now a little clip of To City and Prison. I think a few names would already saw it, like Charlotte or someone, but this is a film that was only circuit in festival circuit, so hope you enjoy it. Let me see if it can do it. Okay.
ما عنده اخوان ور هذا بيجي هذا اللاعب الازرق وهذا هذا وهذاك اللاعب الازرق
مسرحية اليوم تعرفوا فيها؟
لا
قدينا قلوب؟ في مسرحية اليوم شو؟
ما نعرف مسرحية.
تعرفوا شو مسرحية؟
لا. مسرحية شو اللي بعسامو؟
So I don't know, how is it, Ribal? I don't know technically if it was working. So let me know if it's working, so I will continue doing this.
Yeah, it was perfectly fine. It was perfect.
Great. So we are trying this and we're testing it the first time. So I did this film. Why I wanted to show this film, besides that it was a very small budget when I did the film. I think it was around $6,000 when I did the film. I did this and I didn't know that someone else can do the other things, because as I told you, there's no real industry in Syria, especially for documentary and cinema. Mostly it's TV drama. So at that time I went shooting the film with a DP, and I did most of the post editing, grading, and submission to festivals and screening the movie. And I was lucky also with a lot of friends that also started joining us to screen it in different festivals like Arsenal Biennale and stuff. So I was always included in part of the production, in part of the preparation, and then to assure the film to be. And I think might be an obstacle, but at the same time, you know well how this world and this industry function. Another positive of being a woman filmmaker, let's talk first about positive, and since we are only talking about negative, one of the positive about it is when I shot this film, I shot it in Qamishli and Hasaki, and shot it. I shot it also shot it in the prison of minor in Syria. And at that time, I didn't take any permission of shooting. Wherever I went, whether in Qamishli or Hasaki, in the prison of minor, no one asked me for a permission of shooting when they saw me shooting, because they assumed I was a woman filmmaker, so it's not something serious, it's not something that they would ask for me to have a permission, or it's definitely not a film or some, So they never asked me permission. Even I remember one day in Qamishli, I was shooting, and then one of the secret agents arrived, and I was like, and he was asking what we were doing, and I was like so fascinated by the landscape, so beautiful. So I didn't even answer, and the DP was afraid. So like, why you should answer him? You know who it is? It's like white Mercedes something. I said, yeah, but did you see this Bedouin with the sheep? And I didn't talk to him really. I just shot the scene and finished shooting. And then the DP, he asking me if you can include him and shoot him too in the film. Don't forget that you don't have permission, so you have to accept. I said, no. Yeah, he's not in part of the film. Why I will be shooting? Why are we filming him? So it's also kind of me being maybe naive. So everywhere, no one asked me permission for the first film, and I didn't permission. And the first time I screened in the Venice Film Festival, and then in Madrid. I see question about the day I lost my shadow. You will see a sequence of the day I lost my shadow later. I will show a sequence about it. So when I did this film, when I went to the festival, most of my career later, most of the work I did, whether with producers or my team, based on my connection of festivals. So it was always this, for me, this, I call it community, universal community. Wherever you go, you have friendship and people you want to work with, and you have the same discussion you love to do. So most of the film later is based as people who either went to the film screening, or we have a chat after screening, or I went to their filming festival. And after 2 cities in prison, one of the producers of Jazeera TV at that time saw my film and asked me to do a film with them. So TV film with them. So I started to do film with them, and they were like very, they didn't treat me as a TV channel that they have like guideline or things to ask for stuff, because also as a filmmaker, I was always passionate about the thing I want. I was thinking that the stories that I want to tell, that I always thought it's evident that this is the way it should be. So I think since I started to work until now, I never had any note or someone asking me to do something. It's kind of also because I never knew that this is something that people do. So even when I finished my film with the Jazeera documentation, a lot of people told me they didn't ask you those. I said, no, do they do this? And maybe also I think kind of naivety, because I didn't know the industry, because we didn't have it, and I started from zero. So I just made my way of believing this is the way the story should be told, and there's no other way that it should be told. So with Damascus Roof, and it was the second film I was doing with Jazeera documentation at the time, And they had already 2 films about Damascus. And when they came to me and they told me, and I told them, I want to tell this story. And they told me, we already have this, so we will make any other film with you. And for me, as a passionate filmmaker, I said, this is the only story I want to tell now. So if you want to tell it with me, I would be happy, but I have to tell it now, and no other film can do. I can't do another film. So they came back to me and said, yes, you can do this film. So the next film, I had a larger crew. So I didn't do everything. I had like, I delegated more and more parts in the film. So it's kind of, you will see gradually how, as a filmmaker who, independent filmmaker who had to do a lot of things to make my film, gradually also I developed also how I approach filmmaking. I would love to show you also, no, I'm leaving the meeting. I would love to show you a video of Damascus Roof and Tales of Paradise. It's also a film I love because it's the last film I shot in Damascus in 2010. And it shows the city just before the war.
في سقف حديد بمدحت باشا. كل ما بمر تحته بتذكر أبوه لجدي حمزة. كان حداد، شيخ كار، قصير، ما بيخاف. هو يلي رمم السقف مع 2 من رفقاته. كنت أتخيل أبوه لجدي عم يتعربش ليصل لفوق. كنت خبر رفقاتي قصة الضوء من الفتحات يلي ترك رصاص الفرنساوية. من وقت ما بدلوه وحطوا واحد جديد اختفى حمزة وما عدت شفته.
كنا عايشين هون عيلة كبيرة. اخواتي الشباب راحوا، اخواتي البنات، وبقيت انا بهالبيت.
Okay. So I think, yeah, Ribal, if you can turn on your camera, because I feel like I'm talking alone to myself. Okay. So I did this film in Damascus Roof in Syria, and I had this. Yeah, thank you guys. I feel like I'm talking with myself. It's very weird now. I see images and video. Thank you. I appreciate it. And it's nice to see faces. Hi, Yasmin. Yes, thank you. And yeah, hi, Reem and Asaya. It's better. Thank you. So I did this film, Damascus Roof in Syria, and I wanted to show this sequence because I was just walking in the street of Damascus and knocking at doors, and I was shooting, and then I found this lady, and I said, "Can I make this shot with you, this sequence?" And she would accept. She said, "Can I change my top?" I said, "Yes, of course." And so was this intimacy, this feelings that when people see you also as a woman filmmaker, they just invite you into their house, and without even getting ready, as any person who would join you, who invite in the house. This is something in old Damascus also. So I did this film, and I never after this, and this is what I miss when you're a Syrian filmmaker and you leave your country. that to knock at the door, you feel welcome anywhere and you don't have to explain and just put the camera. And don't forget, I was shooting in a time where there were very high surveillance country. And still when they see you, I think, and they trust you as a person, they invite you with like, just to film with them. And I have to say, like, do you want to agree on me filming and stuff? So we have to do this paperwork. And for them, it's just, no, you're welcome, let's film this. So most of the people in Damascus Roof was like this. And that was this film, Me to Me. It's the last film I did it before the war. And then when I did this, I had Damascus, this channel loved a lot my film and said, let's make a contract with 3 films. And it was a very good contract, very good deal with 3 films for 1 year advance. So I was like, and I made my production house in Damascus and I make it with magenta color and black, like a woman filmmaker. So it was very nice place. And then the war started. And I looked at the first demonstration. I said, after writing and preparing for 3 films and documents, I said, I can't tell those stories anymore. Those stories was before the war. And it was the first month exactly when I looked at the country and I knew that we will never be able to live the same. And I knew that a lot that had changed. So I went back to the TV and said, guys, I'm really sorry, but I don't think my stories now are a story I would say. And I think the country changed. And even if it's a very good contract, I prefer not to make those films. And they were surprised. Like, I think no filmmaker would do this. Like, coming back, or producer would say, I can't tell the stories now. The time changed. It was 1 month. And then when I did this, they found out also that a lot of films that was made and they continued doing the stories that they were trying to tell before the war is completely irrelevant of the situation. So they found a lot of difficulty on how to do it, how to screen it. But I wasn't thinking production at this moment. I was just thinking as a filmmaker, do I want to tell the story before the war? Our story before the war and after the war completely changed. So I went, and then I had to leave the country. So I went to Lebanon and left my production house, everything that I built, and my community and my crew that I was starting to build and stuff, and started again from zero in Beirut. And even if I lived in Beirut and I was a student, it's different when you go back to work there. You start from zero. And I said, and I was a filmmaker when I wasn't able to tell the story the same. And I said, I'm not making a film. I'm just trying to explore trauma and how to talk about, I don't want to make a film anymore like before, how to tell a story during the war, how you can tell a story about trauma. So I made this film, Obscure, and this was also not screened a lot, so I would love to screen, I'll show you a little sequence of it, about a kid who was so traumatized that he doesn't want to tell his name, he wants to forget where is he from. Let me show the script, a sequence from it, and then I can talk about it.
أحمد، فينا نقعد سوا بالبلكون؟ نقعد كلنا سوا؟ تعطيني ايدك؟ جرب شوي معنا هنقعد مع بعض.
أحمد، من وين أنت؟
ما بعرف.
ما بتعرف؟ أنت من درعا؟ تعرف درعا؟ Okay, so I did this film and I was, I didn't know at the time I'm traumatized, but I did this film. And it was in a time, don't forget, when I made this film, every Syrian film was suddenly finding themselves that can speak loudly. So it made this film in a time when people talking really directly about the war and they scream what they wanted. I couldn't. I wanted to talk about this pain of not able to talk anymore, about this trauma and how it's difficult to express it somehow. So it kind of difficult. It was different at that time as a kind of movie. If you see it in the context of documentaries, Syrian documentaries in time of war. And it's part of also my approach as a filmmaker. Usually what I do, I put the camera and I wait patiently as to a human being. Sometimes you just need someone to be near you, and even if it's not able to talk or not, it's enough. So I was just near him. I know his trauma. You saw a little bit distorted the image in the video, but I knew his trauma. I knew what he's feeling. I knew what it meant to forget and to try to forget and to sometimes feel it's very heavy to say just you are from Syria. Just you are from this country where all these tragedies happening. So I knew what he felt. So my approach was just to be with him most of the film. Most of him, it's a very long moment of silence when I did this. So it wasn't easy to produce this film either, because at that time, Financer was like, so they are not speaking the character. I was like, so it's not a film about people talking, and and so it wasn't an evident story to tell, and it was difficult to find, but I just did it. And I think part of also when you can edit and then go with people and do your work and produce it, you can end your film you want. You can make the story you want to tell at this time. So I just wanted to make this film, and I did it. And during this time, since I was in Syria in 2011, I started working on my first feature film, fiction film, and I started working on it and writing it. I didn't leave Syria until I finished the first draft of the script of The Day I Lost My Shelter. So when I went to Lebanon and I started to find financing, also I found for people it was not an evident story to tell at the time of war. Why are you telling fiction and you're not saying it? You're not telling it in a documentary? As a free Syrian filmmaker, we have to be telling the story in only form, in only way, and we don't have the freedom or the creativity to tell what happened to us in another form. So people would fund documentary, but fiction, why would we fund the fiction Syrian filmmaker at the time? And the story about a woman who loses her shadow during the war. So why you're not telling the thing so we can understand about Syria clearly. And suddenly they're asking filmmaker to be analyst, to be not a filmmaker, and something as a filmmaker around the world wouldn't be demanded to do this. But again, if you believe in your story, say, I'm doing it, and you find a way to do it. So my sister told me, look, no one wants to find this, let's together make this production house, and we made this production house, and let's find financing together. Of course, it took us 7 years to make it, and we made every mistake we can imagine in production, because it was me and her first time doing feature film, her first time producing a feature film. So we made all the possible mistakes, which is we learned to it. And then once the film ended, people like, when you do the story, when you're trying to tell the story, what's the story, or you're financing or trying to find financing, people would resist to tell a story that is not normal. But when you do it, you find audience in it, and people love the film. So we said, like, why? So you give us so hard time to do it. But during 7 years, we have a lot of fun and people who like love the film and supported to arrive. So let me show last sequence of the film, and then we can open it to question. What do you think? Okay.
استعجلت شوي. عزيزة مخرجة غربة صعبة. تعودي على الناس، عطي إشارة على اليمين. تعودي على الناس، عشان الشوارع. أعطي إشارة على اليسار. أيوة. سوريا وبلبنان يا حبيبي. والله لا يكسروها. انتبهي مطب لكن انتبهي مطب بالنار. شايفتي وتوقعي فيه. بدك تحبشيها؟ ما عندنا غير عزيزة هون.
إذا لسه بتحكي عنها هيك أنا ما عاد مثل، مو بقيان غير تكتب لها شعر.
مين قال لك عم مثل؟ أنا عم علمك سواقة بس.
بالباركينج أيمن، بالباركينج. أنا بدي سوق عن جد، مو تمثيل. شو هالجنان هاد؟ أصلاً أنا بعرف إنك بتخاف عليها أكثر ما تخاف علي.
لك يا مجنونة تعالي هون. معقول هالحكي؟ معقول خاف على عزيزة أكثر منك؟ لك أنت مرتي حبيبتي، روحي. بس السواقة هون هيك خطيرة كثير. خلص ليكي بكرة بس تتعلمي السواقة وحياة عيونك رخليكي تسوقي بكل شوارع بيروت. خلينا نبلش من جديد، يلا.
لحظة خلينا نسكر الباب بركي سرعنا على الطريق.
لك على مهلك شو باب بستان؟ انت ركز.
ما كنت عارف تغير الانكاسات؟
هلا شو بدك بالكاسات؟ تجي بالسواقة. ليش اجيتي من هون؟
شو عمل هلا؟
اعطي اشارة ولفي على اليمين. لك لا مو تلفي على اليمين، اعطي اشارة اول. الله عليك، لا تزيدي السرعة، خليكي هيك.
لين روح هلا؟
خلي يمين. لا تمرقي السيارة.
So this is another film. So I will close this, and then I will leave with a question, I think. So I wanted also to end with Aziza, because it was also difficult to make this film, because at the time when I was making the film, it's like we don't understand the story. It's like about how do you make a story about Syria with comic humor and a guy that looks crazy with his car, and what does it mean to be obsessed about something you only have from your country and something. So when I had the script, people were like, even is he crazy or is it, you know, and then when you say the film, they would understand, this is the story I want to tell, and it worked out. So why you prepare stories that is not the normal story to tell? And especially I had a lot of questions like, they don't look like refugee, and it's like, what do you mean? How a refugee look like? Is there one shape and one color and one image for refugee. We are a whole population from all different classes, from all backgrounds now, in diaspora, in exile, in refugee. And why you want to see just one image, the image in you that doesn't look like a human being? A lot of people resisted this, like, this is not what we want as a refugee to look like. And working on difference, if you see Obscure with different classes and working with this film, I resist of framing us in one image, or framing my work in one style. And even the story is difficult to tell, I would still want to tell it. Hopefully finding audience would love it too. So yeah, let's open it to question.
Thank you so much, Soudade. This was really amazing. I just wanted to start off by saying there's lots of questions about where we can access your films. So I don't know if, I know one of them is a secret and it'll come out next week. But
yeah, next week I will. 3 of my films will be streaming next week.
3 of them? Okay.
I can announce it next week. It will be Aziza, The Day I Lost My Shadow, and BC Spread. The other films, Damascus through Fantasy of Paradise is online. I can share now the link online to watch it. Obscure is I can't limit it because it's about trauma, it's a personal story, so it's kind of a few platforms you can see documented in it. Also, I can share it if you want.
Yeah, if you want, maybe next week you can send me the new platform where the films are arriving.
Yes, please.
The old ones, and then I can send an email out to everyone on here so that they can see it.
Yeah, I love it.
Thank you. So I'm just going to leave it to you guys if anyone has a question. If not, I'll jump in. I have loads.
I've got one. Hi, Soudade. Really great to hear about your films. I mean, I know you and I've been following your work and I'm a fan. But I just want to pick up on something you said in the beginning, which I thought was pretty interesting and something I've experienced too, but how sometimes being a woman is like an advantage, especially in parts of the Arab world where it's never hindered me, but it's always actually given me more access than I expected for some of the things that you picked up on. And sometimes it actually gives you spaces to like men's space or access to men's spaces as well as women's spaces. And you can kind of float in between, which I don't think men necessarily always get the access to in certain situations. So I just wanted to say I appreciated you bringing that up. And it is something I've experienced a lot. And I think it's an interesting and probably not expected sort of aspect of, I guess, being a woman filmmaker, you know, in some ways. But I don't know if you had anything else to say about that.
I think, no, I just said sometimes there's this advantage, especially in the Arab world. Like, I don't know if because they don't take you seriously or just what is it, but they give you more access to things. Imagine 2008 in Syria, prison of minor, I was shooting for 1 month and no one asked me for a paper. And I just he came to me as a prison director, like manager, I was like, what are you doing? He said, theater. You would want to say cinema. I have camera and everything. I said, I'm doing theater. Said, and they looked at me like, you know. I said, okay, some people do film. And said, really? And he said, yes. And then the team, the people, like the prisoner, not how to say in English, supervisor, was helping me with material for a month to film without a permission in Syria in 2008. And this is, you wouldn't have, like, they would carry stuff for me. And then there is the camera, because I couldn't have assistant with me to go to prison to film. So I was having all the equipment and it was very heavy and stuff. So they were helping me. The supervisor, and this is an advantage, I think. So, it's not serious what you're doing, so they let you be, and you also have more access to houses. Anyone can open their house to you, and of course, if you are, respectable to their space and to have to talk with them about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll jump in if I may, and agree completely with Soudade. Something about being a woman in Syria and also having an excuse of the foreignness. I also in 2008-9 got away with a lot of things you wouldn't expect. But I think the foreignness, because you're French educated, I grew up abroad, somehow they just think, oh, she's not a threat, it's just something she picked up from over there, that's benefit from it. Soudade, I'm really glad that your films are going to be streamed, because as you know, I've seen half of them, but I've been waiting for the other half, so this is really good. And it was great to hear more about your work today. You've been in London for a couple of years now. So we know about you as a filmmaker in Syria and you as a filmmaker in London, in Lebanon, sorry. What can we expect from Soudade, the Syrian filmmaker in London?
It's been actually 8 months, 9 months since I'm here, so I'm totally 9 months as I came with lockdown, so I know all the lockdowns, how they look in London and UK. I think I just keep continuing my film. I'm preparing my next film, which is Nizouh, which is I wrote in Lebanon. It's about, it's a Nizouh. I didn't translate the title, I kept it in Arabic. Another word I always resisting of explaining the story and stuff, which is in English, it means, in Arabic, it means Nizouh, displacement of water and light and people. So it's not limited to just people. So I'm working on this movie and yeah, I'm excited about it. I think, to be honest, it's a great opportunity to move here. It's a little bit difficult when I moved, and it was, sorry, during lockdown. But to people, you see now they need more voices to include in their industry. So, you know, so they feel part of industry faster now. So yeah, I feel it's very good news. I can't also talk about what I'm doing, so but it will be very, very soon. But yeah, I'm so happy. Thank you, Reem and Yasmin. Been a long time doing film together, talking and I screen my film in your house and in your artistic space. So feel like with this chat, we are continuing a chat from a long time. Really, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
May I?
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Soudade, for the presentation. And I know you've talked about the challenges and all the difficulties. I was wondering if you can just kindly tell us a little bit more about the financial side of the story and the funding and all of these, you know, challenges within this sector. Thank you. As an independent filmmaker.
I think it's always challenging if you are a filmmaker, whether you are a woman or a man, making a film as the director, to find financing. There's almost no financing in the Arab region. We have few funds, grants, soft money, but there's no really like there's no infrastructure, there's no institution to support you. So whether I was in Syria or in Lebanon, so you rely on very small amount from the Arab world, and most of the financing will come from Europe. And part of it is how to work, and that's why I think most of the people now here like familiar of working co-production, something we have to do to make our films. So we reach out to producers and we reach out to financiers in Europe to make our films. It takes a little bit long time. Any co-production will take a little bit long time to do it, but it gets also easier with time. So the first film was a little bit difficult to make. It was also co-production between France and my company, and I was main producer, my sister and financer. It was difficult because we knocked every door you can find and imagine in life to find financing to make the film, and we knocked every door at least 3 times. so we like to make the film. Like the first time a financer would say no, it's like I come back and then, is it a no, Andre? They come back, and then they would. A lot of people that at the third time is like I still, you know, like they would finally come on board. So I did this. We did the extra. Say this is a film we need to tell, and we know we need you to make it. So I did this extra effort. I didn't accept the first no. So majority financing was coming from the Arab region, and minority was France. But it was so difficult to make. It's so hard to make that the next film I'm doing now is actually a co-production between UK, France, and my company is still based in Lebanon between them. It makes the thing faster. It makes every financing faster. The only thing that I think might be difficult is how to defend and want to tell your story we always worry because our story is in Arab language, my films are in Arab language, and about Syria, and whether it's a la mode now to tell the story about Syria or not, I will still tell it. You know, it's like if it's at the beginning people would financing film story. Now it's not like in the news anymore. It's like, but I'm still telling it. It's like this is the story I tell. It is in my language. I'm not letting the character speak in a language they don't speak. I'm not going to actors that are not Syrian or authentic. If I'm making the story in Lebanon, it will be Lebanese people. If I'm making a story of Syria, it's depending. So I try to have the casting authentic. So this is something we fight and struggle to find financing. So our film, unfortunately, which is in the Arab language, we have less financing, less money, and whatever style you have in the Arab region is not enough style. Like you are coming from Europe style, and will not have the same exposure. But I think at the end, as I told you, I started with very, very small budget film, and I adapt with every film, and I just say, this is a story I tell, how to make it happen, how much money I can raise, and I'll make the film whatever happen with this. That's why we struggle as a filmmaker and director.
That's great. Thanks so much for the insight. So.
Yeah. Is there any question? I see a lot of chat, but I'm not able to see them.
I'm gonna jump in with a question, if I may. I'm gonna take you back a few years, but when I'm gonna sound like a high schooler now, but I really wanted to go into filmmaking when I was at school, and then I imagine it's the same with a lot of Arab parents. I was told, "Oh, you're never gonna make money. How are you gonna do that?" So I just was told to do graphic design because it's similar enough, which I did. How did you manage to fight your way into it?
I think, yeah, I totally understand. I don't know you want to say that's the story, but I totally understand if you're coming a woman filmmaker from our Middle East, what it is. To be honest, I had to have 3 diplomas to convince my parents that I'm not making filmmaking as a profession. It's just a hobby. I kept telling them hobby for a long time. So I had to study French literature license, which is 4 years study, theater 4 years, and 3 years cinema, to convince them. And then when you go to society and stuff, you say, what do you do? I said, French literature or something, or writing story for kids. It's like being a woman filmmaker at that time, you know, coming from society is not something. So I had to study a lot of diploma aside, so to look like I'm studying for them something serious, and while the cinema is a hobby. And so for a long time when I was making the film, it's like I wasn't even saying, I knew this is the only thing I'm doing. It was the only thing I'm doing. But at that time, even my parents would say, what she's doing, your daughter, I said, she works in the opera. It's never about filmmaking, never. And it lasted for long, because I used to work in opera Damascus. And it lasted for a long time until I won in Venice. And then the people in Syria came to my parents and said, your daughter won and stuff. And said, yes, she's a filmmaker. Like, at that time they started to say, but I think it's part, I would understand that it's part of the struggle of being woman filmmaker in the media, how to go, especially that I'm not coming from a family that is artistic background. So my father is a doctor, my mom is a teacher. We're not coming from cinema universe, which should make easier if you have a family coming from the same industry, make your path much, much easier. While if you're just starting in society that's not accepting what you're doing and you have to try to find a way to do it, it's much, much, much longer way to do. But yeah, now they, you know, everyone, and because when people come back to say, this is a story we wanted to hear, this is a story we didn't hear before. Yeah, it's rewarding somehow. But
of course, now that you're sick.
Do you want still to study filmmaking?
I would love, actually, I would love to. I'm still thinking about it. It's a bit, we'll see.
Yeah, I think, yeah, if you just want to, I think just a small masterclass, and then there's no film school as the first thing you will do. This is where you learn everything. So just, I think if you start with the first step, yeah. It was the same for me. I was like, first time I have something, I was behind camera, I was like, wow. I felt like this existential moment when suddenly the universe has meaning. This is what should be. And there's no way there's, you know, the pleasure of being behind camera and filming for me is like, you know, because also we struggle to arrive to shooting. So once we are shooting, for us, it's like, it's a paradise moment of filmmaking. I love shooting. I love being on set. Yeah, and we wait for this moment.
Thank you. That's very inspirational for me. Thank you so much. I don't know if anyone else has any more questions. We have another couple of minutes. Yes, West, I think you have your hand up.
So do you mind if you tell us about your next future project?
Yes, I'll say thank you, Hassan. Yeah, it's nice to see you here also in the chat. I am preparing as I said, I'm preparing my next feature film, Nuzur, which is a story of a little girl who lives in this house in Damascus, and it's besieged area, and it's everything closed, like windows closed, and suddenly a bomb fallen on the house, which is tragic in Syria. But what happened is this house suddenly opened up, and the roof opened up, and the little girl for the first time sleep under the stars and sees a neighbor's boy. So what I'm trying to tell in this story, how in the middle of destruction, in the middle of war, people who live the war will understand what I'm saying. We find hope, we find a way of survive. Our passion for life, our desire for life gets stronger. So it's light mid-destruction. That's why it's Nuzur. Nuzur has displacement of darkness more than displacement of people in the film.
Wonderful. And which stage are you in the development of the film, if you can share that as well?
It's confidential. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but thank you. It will be soon. Soon I can share news and stuff. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
I'm sorry. Sometimes people ask you to.
I think West has a question as well.
Yeah, I would like to thank you, Soudade, for this great presentation. Okay, it was great to meet you today and all the attendee. Actually, I'm following your success story since the very beginning. Okay, and I'm proud of you as a successful Syrian woman and also as a successful woman. Okay, and I would always encourage you to keep on what you are doing. It's really great movies. I didn't have the chance to see all of them, but I've seen a couple or three movies and they are really, really, really great. Okay, so keep it on. I'm proud of you, and it's great to meet you all today. Thank you, Soudade.
Thank you, thank you. It means to me a lot of words. Thank you. I'm so happy with meeting friends now and people we didn't see for a long time from Syria. From last time it was in Syria, I think. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
I think Diana, we have one more question before we wrap up.
Thank you, Rala. Hi, so Soudade, I have a question for you. I'm from the US, and from time to time, there's different, I would say, independent film festivals happening throughout the US. But overall, have you ever considered in a future project or in past highlighting Syrian women, like taking profiles and either making it like a mini series of these are Syrian women you should know, to, let's say, to the foreign audience who may not know about prominent Syrian women?
I think I did a documentary before the war with the Jazeera documentation and about 4 Syrian prominent women. And one is the first pilot woman, one was the first champion of kickboxing in Syria, and one a singer of opera, and one who worked with Down syndrome kid. So I didn't work on this subject before the war. It was 2009. It was a TV documentary for this. But now I think just I'm just, my passion is for fiction, and this is now the only thing that I want to do and want to say. And all my films, the main character are women, or they're like girls or women. So somehow I'm showing this without making a documentary, saying this is the woman what can do. But and it's not something like, it's not saying I have to have a woman in my film like now because it's a la mode with Me Too movement and diversity and stuff. No, it's just, for me, this is how the story should be told. I'm a woman filmmaker, and this is how I would tell a story about a woman doing this and this stuff, you know. So, you know, so I'm not, at least now, planning to tell a documentary film story. But in the two projects I'm preparing, it's the protagonist is a woman from different ages, a Syrian woman. So, yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Soudade. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, and also for keeping us excited about all your different projects coming up, all the secrets that are going to be revealed soon. Thank you everyone for joining us. I just posted in the chat the 2 upcoming events that we have in the series. We have Yasmin Feda, who's with us today, who's hiding, on Thursday, the 27th of May. And then we have Naziha Arabi on the 3rd of June. So please join us. I'll make sure to send you the list from Soudade of where we can see her films next week. I'll also send you links to these events if you'd like to join. And thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, Soudade. It was a pleasure meeting you and speaking to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you and Asa for organizing it. And thank you for everyone who was joining here. I feel like a friend meeting, chatting between us about films, about our work, about struggle. So it's, I really loved the chat today and how the questions. So thank you. Appreciate you all coming. And yes, hope you will watch the films once Nibal shares them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.